Hi there. I wanted to pop on and let you know that today's episode includes a conversation about experiencing sexual assault. It's okay if it's an episode that you want to skip, but I want you to know that there are resources out there if you or someone you know is a victim of sexual assault. You can call 1-800-656-HOPE. You can text HOPE to 64673. And there's a resource specifically for men who've experienced this kind of trauma at 1in6.org. Number 1, IN, number 6.org. Most importantly, please take care of yourself, always. Okay, here's the episode. So, as we promised last episode, at the end of last episode, we picked out each other's t-shirts from my t-shirt drawers. Drawers. And you picked out this one first.
Yeah.
You know what this is?
I thought it was Tony the Tiger first, actually, with Yamaka. So I thought it was cool.
Yamaka.
But then I realized.
Yamaka drew.
So then I realized it's not.
Yeah. His name is Hodori.
Hodori.
The horangi. Horangi is a tiger.
Yes.
This was the mascot for the 1988 Seoul Olympics in Korea.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Kevin picked out this t-shirt. He saw it. He was drawn to it. What drew you to this t-shirt for me?
I really did think it was Tony the Tiger for a minute.
You did?
I thought it was the 80s Tony the Tiger. That's why.
Yeah.
It's not.
So he picked out this one, and then I was like, well, then you have to wear that one. So this is, I forget the name of the company, but this is just like a reprint. Someone came up with this design. That is an original 1983 commemorative t-shirt that I got off of eBay for like $100 like 10, 15 years ago.
This was $100?
Yeah, because it's from 1983.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you're like stretching it out with your heaving pecs right now, but that's okay.
It's a nice way for you to compliment me.
There
right?
you go. There you go. That's how men compliment each other. So yeah, Hodori was this symbol. It's just like a really kind of nostalgic, cute. It was a really big deal for Korea, that Korean history, the 1988 Olympics. Because it was sort of like, in many ways, it was the coming out party for Korea.
Like nobody knew who they were?
Yeah. Like
really?
A lot of people, I don't know if you had this experience, like when I was a kid, people didn't know what Korea was.
Oh yeah, they thought I was Chinese. And so when I said Korean, they didn't know.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and not to mention through just sort of like economic development and building a country, like it was sort of seen for Koreans and for a lot of countries, like you have to sort of you have to qualify. You have to be chosen by the Olympics. You have to apply and be chosen to be a host city or a host nation. And so for Korea, it was like, let's see if we can build up our country, not just for the Olympics, obviously, but like as the country was developing economically through the early 80s.
Wow.
Then when they applied to host the Olympics and they got it, it was like, oh, this is our first real, like, on the world stage kind of moment. So, there are things like, Psy Gangnam Style, like 1 billion views on YouTube, like in 2011 or whatever, kind of thing. Well, it was like about Korea showing up on the world stage and getting the world's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so 1988 was like a really big deal. It was really, as a Korean American, like I was really proud. My family was really proud, and so the Hodori is like a really nice kind of like icon of that time. But yeah, you're wearing an OG. This is like literally like if it's 83, yeah, it's as old as you are.
Totally. I'm glad I am so Korean that I picked the most Korean shirt you have. It's great.
Well, you're wearing the only sort of made in Korea t-shirt I think that's in that drawer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud to wear it. We'll return it to you afterwards.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
So how do you feel wearing that?
I always feel great wearing a tight t-shirt. Doesn't matter what color it is, but like
what's funny is that this is a size large.
This is large?
Well, but it's like a Korean large. So it's like a medium, but then it's on top of that, it's like 40 years old. So then it's like a small and a half, don't you think?
Yeah, and also it's also probably a time when like Koreans were smaller, probably, right? Yeah. So
yeah, but good memories, Hodori. I have this memory of Bryant Gumbel, the sportscaster on NBC, like him introducing when they were doing the opening ceremonies, Hodori, the harangi, and my family was like, we all groaned, so like people mispronouncing things on the world stage is nothing new.
Yeah.
To me, it's like it's not so much that people don't pronounce certain names right? Like, I get it, except when you have every chance to get it right.
Mm.
Or you can find someone who knows how to pronounce these things because these things are important, or go practice.
Yeah.
So I made you a coffee this morning, a cappuccino.
It was great.
It's like what we used to call like a competition cappuccino.
Oh.
So if you compete at like the coffee making championships, like that's the type of cappuccino that we do. I used to be the chairman of the United States Barista Championship back it's been like 16, 17 years ago. Maybe more, actually. I used to MC the competitions. I used to MC these international coffee making championships. And when I was first invited to do that, I was like, oh, these people trained really hard and they worked really hard to get here. The least I can do to honor their participation is do my absolute best to be able to pronounce their name right when I announce them. Because, like, I don't know about you, like, Kreider is a fair, I mean, I guess you can mispronounce Kreider.
I was just about to tell you that, like, my name gets mispronounced all the time.
Sure.
They say Critter.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to say that they're understandable mispronunciations. Everyone's names, sometimes someone's going to mispronounce it. The problem is like when it's mispronounced all the time, or what's worse is when people treat your name as something that's like annoying for them to have to say.
Right. It's
like, why'd your name have to be so hard?
Yeah.
For me, I would stand backstage and practice for as long as it took to get their name like acceptably, correct.
Yeah.
The hardest names consistently were names of the people from Thailand and Iceland.
Iceland?
Yeah. So much that I practiced so much. This would have been 2005. So how many years has it been? 21 years. And I still remember Siritai Rangjangtuk, the barista champion of Thailand. And Iceland that year was Ingibjörg Jona Sigurðardóttir.
That sounds Japanese.
Sigurðardóttir. Dóttir is daughter.
Wow.
So like Jonsson or like Michaelson.
Yeah.
So in Scandinavian names, like that's like someone's son. Son of Michael is Michaelson. And then I learned later that in Iceland they still use it. I think some other countries too, but they'll have like their father and the daughter. Dóttir, Dottir is how they spelled it. So then there's people who, because like there's some cultures they didn't have like last names, like family names like we're used to.
Yeah.
They just have like, Kevin, son of, what's your father's name?
Mark.
Yeah, like, so it would be like, your name would be Kevin Markson.
Oh, I don't like that. Markson?
Yeah. Well, Mark's son.
Oh, son.
Yeah. And then
Gotcha.
if you were a girl, it'd be like Mark Dóttir. That's kind of their naming convention. Yeah, if you're watching, if you have to pronounce someone's name, either learn to say it well, as close to perfect as possible. Practice if need be. At the very least, don't ever make anyone feel like their name is weird or inconvenient for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, maybe is that a hot take?
Yeah, at least be embarrassed about it.
Or express that.
Yeah.
I think
that is a hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have
That's a good
do some more hot takes.
Okay. What are the hot takes you have in mind? We were talking about the Odyssey earlier. You have a different hot take than I do.
The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Is this going to be just my hot takes, or are you going to have
No,
some hot
I
takes too?
have a hot take on Odyssey.
You do? Well, let's hear yours.
So I was talking to somebody who's actually in the mental health space as well. And he called me up and was like, dude, what a great men's mental health journey that was. And I was like,
Odyssey.
Yeah. So he looked at it in a certain way, and I actually started to look at it that way too. And so when you look at it, it's the mental health of a war veteran who saw a lot of people die, like a lot of war veterans do. And also he was going against his own religion. So if you look at it, like going in with the Trojan horse and killing people when, Zeus's law was like, you give a gift and
you kind of honor that.
You honor that.
Yeah.
And he was dishonoring that.
Yeah.
So then his whole mental health journey was to go home. And even like when he was stuck with that lady, spoiler alert if you haven't read the book or seen the movie.
It's only been, 3,000 years that you've had to catch up on the story.
But if you haven't, then I don't feel bad for you if we break this. That's another hot take. But
yeah.
But the lotus petals are very much like kind of like medication, right? Trying to medicate yourself to finally go home.
Self-medicate.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what, when I saw that, and a lot of it could be kind of delusional things, really like all in his imagination, because he is so mentally unwell from all the war and battle. I saw it as like, oh yeah, it's really a mental health journey trying to get home.
I can see that.
Yeah, yeah.
My hot take about the Odyssey is like very much the opposite in a way. This doesn't pertain just to the Odyssey. It sort of is like there's this concept like Joseph Campbell's the hero's journey that, you know, the more sort of literary kind of people watching and listening will be familiar with. And I have a hot take about that. And it relates to the Odyssey.
Okay.
That like there's this idea of stories that are beloved stories and in many ways like historically very prized, treasured, sort of beloved stories like the Odyssey, like Homer's The Odyssey. So just to be clear, it's not negating the value of these things. It's more, there's also a different side of that same coin, different point of view, which is these hero's journey stories. It's like people, these men, generally white men, will go on this adventure of some kind. And all these things happen and they're changed or there's some realization. Academics will use the word actualization. Like there's like this development.
Self-actualization,
yeah, there's this development that happens in that character over the course of the story as it plays out. As I've gotten older, I find myself very troubled by, this person's going on this journey. The other point of view is all these terrible things have to happen to all these people for this one fucking guy.
It's a good point.
You know?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I think that it has many ways of kind of upholding what we typically call like patriarchal and sometimes racist points of view.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, like slavery in America, oh, it was so terrible, but look at all the wonderful things that we have. You know, look at all the modern, you know, whatever.
Right.
The way that the hero's journey, the way it creeps into people's minds and hearts and has a way of justifying unjustifiable things. When, you know, I do like that the Odyssey does spend some time, you know, both the original poem, epic poem, and the film, you know, showing Odysseus's reckoning, you know, it still doesn't justify anything that happened. I guess another way to put it is for you to do something terrible and then realize how terrible you were is not as good as not having been terrible in the first place. And I think that people forget that a lot of the time, especially in relationships. Like how many times have people been in arguments where the person's like, yeah, but you know this, or I did this for this reason, and they want to be absolved. They want to be sort of forgiven, or they want to be given an excuse. They're making excuses, you know. But that's the thing. Like, and the way that I try to live my life is like I want to have as much positive impact as possible, but I'm kind of borderline paranoid of negative impact, of hurting people. And to me, like, that's the only way to live, actually, I think. Everything that we're seeing on social media and cancel culture and Me Too and Black Lives Matter, like all these lessons that we're learning now and that we've learned throughout history, what my main takeaway through it all is there's no such thing as good people and bad people. There's only...
This is a new hot take,
There's another hot take. I don't believe that there's such a thing as good people or bad people.
Yeah, you're going to have to explain to me and the audience about that one.
I don't have to explain what good people and bad people
Definitely
means,
not,
right?
yeah.
Like, you know, and I think that for people watching and listening, it's like, what do you mean no such thing as good people and bad people? Like, obviously there is such a thing. Like, look at these murderers, look at Hitler, look at like, you know, these atrocities, and look at, you know, whatever, Mother Teresa, like whoever, like you want to point to as being a good person. I guess like my challenge would be consider the idea that what if there wasn't such a thing? What if there wasn't such a thing as good people and bad people? Well, there is still goodness. There are good things like love, happiness, joy, health, like prosperity. Like there are things that are good. And there's things that are bad, like pain, suffering, violence, like there are all these things that are bad. Those things are bad, and then there are things that are good. But when you then say there are people that are good or bad, you're creating a recipe for disaster. Because everything that we consider evil that's happened in history, the people who did it thought they had good reasons. And they thought of themselves as being good. So I call bullshit on the idea that there's such a thing as good people and bad people. And there's this paradox. I made a video about this once, a Korean Dad video. If you want to do good in the world, and if you want to minimize the amount of pain and suffering and damage that you do as an individual, is it better for you to focus on all the good things you can do or all the bad things you can do?
Probably all the good things.
You would think so.
Yeah.
No way.
Why not?
It's all the bad things.
Why?
This is the part why it's a paradox. If you think about all the good things you can do, what ends up happening is that you are going to accidentally hurt people.
So you're saying if you think of all the bad things, you automatically just negate the bad things and become a good person?
If you think about all the bad things that you could do, or excuse me, all the ways you could hurt people, then you can actively avoid them in real time.
Right.
It's like if you're about to say something and you think for a second, how could this hurt the person I'm talking to?
Right.
Then you can not say it. You thought it, but that's the paradox, right? You have to think of it. You have to picture it in order to avoid it. Whereas if you tell yourself, well, I could never say anything like that.
Right.
And then you say something stupid or offensive or that hurts somebody, then that's how you get those people who then are like, I could never do that. That's not who I am. You're like, you just did.
Right.
You literally just did. And now you're telling me that's not who I am. I could never do that. How common is that kind of thing?
Right. Well, I think we're all hypocrites in some way.
Can we do our best to sort of minimize that?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to do our best to minimize those things?
So you think the guy from Obsession wasn't a good person or a bad person?
You want to talk about Obsession?
Yeah, I kind of do. I was waiting for my way to sneak into that for a second.
Good segue. It's funny because you've been wanting to talk about Obsession before we even started this podcast.
I know, but after we've actually had discussions offline about it, obviously my viewpoints changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
But going from that, though, a lot of people think, who's the main character's name again? Bear. So in that context, then, he is not a good person or a bad person, right?
He's not a good person or a bad person.
Did he make bad choices?
But
Did he do bad things?
Right.
Absolutely.
Because in the beginning, he thought it would be actually nothing, making that wish. Like it was just like a wishful thinking type of thing.
Yeah.
And
are we supposed to do a spoiler alert for if you haven't seen?
I think everybody's seen it by now, right?
Everyone who cares about it. I don't think that any of these things that we're talking about at this point are spoilers per se. I think people, even if you haven't seen it, you've heard people talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So I won't go into exactly what happened, but when he was making that wish, was he a good person or a bad person?
I mean, again, I don't think there's such a thing as good people or bad people.
So he's just making a bad decision by making that wish.
You're asking the question. Do you think it's in question at all?
Well, I think he was just naive and just a hopeless guy and just saw something.
See, but that's the trap of the nice guy.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, but I was a nice guy. Like, I'm so nice. Like, I couldn't possibly,
take away someone's autonomy.
Yeah.
well, like what I find out, like after many discussions, obviously he didn't know that's what he was doing in the beginning, but it's very clear he was doing it and he still went with it.
Yeah.
So at that point, when he continued to go with it, was he a bad person or was kind of like what Kimmy said, he just made a bad choice?
Well, I think that we talked about this earlier, but for the record, for the podcast, I mean,
it took a lot of discussion
we had
me to change my
right
mind.
over there in the kitchen.
Yeah.
We had a heated discussion earlier this afternoon about obsession.
There's a lot of context I was missing.
You know what?
Maybe
we can talk about it in this way.
Yeah.
What do you think that you thought before, and in what ways did our conversation...
So I thought there were some female magazines that were making accusations to rage bait men versus women, right? But then, obviously...
that said what?
That said, I don't know the exact quote, and I don't want to misrepresent
generally speaking.
Generally saying just basically men are predatory. You know?
That the story is like, it's sort of...
No, they actually just said, men, this is a symbol, bear is a symbol that men are predatory, that they'll do anything for whatever or something like that. And I was like, really? When you just read that, it's kind of like, what? It seems like you're really trying to get men and women arguing with each other, or at least women. It didn't seem like for a woman magazine that it was empowering the women. It was putting more fear and to say like, go against men, that's what it seemed like. But then when you and Kimmy were sharing how, no, like, because I was only coming from the viewpoint of the beginning, like, he didn't know, like, who knows that, like, you snap
You were
a
giving
thing.
him the benefit of the doubt that when he snapped the little willow thing, that he was kind of like, it was like opening a fortune cookie and making a wish. He didn't
100%.
really have the full understanding that this was actually going to do anything.
Right, 100%. That's where I was coming from.
Right. But so that the way that the story plays out, that you're kind of, again, giving him benefit of the doubt,
right,
which we can argue whether or not he deserves it, because he didn't know what was happening, that even though, what was the woman character's name? Nikki? No.
Yeah, Nikki.
Was it Nikki?
Yeah.
The way she was acting, he didn't know that was caused by what he did. He just thought that she was just acting strange.
Well, he didn't know she was possessed or in a different
whatever the thing happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't want to believe that.
Right.
Well, no, he didn't know in the beginning though, but there was a point he eventually just didn't want to believe it.
Right.
So that's why I was like,
and then through as things progress, he clearly did not care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As long as he got what benefit he got out of it.
And also too, like you finally came up with a point like people don't want to be accountable for things. And then I was just saying, well, that's everybody, though. A lot of people don't want to be accountable for things. A lot of people just want to put the blame on somebody else and not take accountability for things. I'm not saying Nikki is accountable for what she did because she didn't ask for that. But
She's
just
accountable for whatever she did.
Yeah, for whatever she did. But I was just saying that, like, for me, I was like, if that's what it is, then that's not a story of men and predators. It's just a story of nobody wants to be accountable for what they're doing.
Oh, it's also a story about
But when they get what they want, they just want to get what they want, if that makes sense.
I think that part of what makes the story resonate for so many women is that women have been treated so often like they exist for the men's benefit. Now, you can make the argument that there are a lot of women that act like a man's there for their benefit too, but I think that while that might be true, it doesn't have to be false in order to sort of say that, like, it's been not just on an individual level widespread, but like culturally and systemically that women being sort of the property of men has been a thing throughout history. And so, like it's been such a big part of my relationship with Kimmy, her talking about like prior partners making her feel accessorized, like that she's there for their benefit. Oh man, there's a whole hot take about that, right? The white guy, Asian woman thing.
I know.
Oh, we should get to that one.
Please don't expose my dating history.
Yeah.
But may I chime in
yes,
as from,
the resident woman on here.
Resident woman. A magazine isn't telling us that men are predators, just to be clear.
What do you mean?
Like you were saying, what that magazine doing that is going to tell women to have this take on why men are, like, all men are predators.
Right.
It's our lived experience.
Yeah.
So
their daily lives are telling them that.
Whether this article was written or not, women would believe that and feel that.
Truly believe all men are predators.
No one said all.
No, it did.
No.
The magazine thing was...
It said men are.
Yeah, but that's saying all. Men are predators.
If someone says like, oh, it's like, I don't know, spiders are dangerous.
Spiders are
and
dangerous.
You're like, Yeah, they are dangerous. They're not all dangerous.
I don't know. I just think it's such a strong word that says so much that doesn't explain men.
But
if that
why are
makes
you
sense.
focusing on the parts where you think it's wrong? You could also focus on the way that it's true.
That could be said for everything, though, Nick.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But that's
I'm just asking for, for you to understand that it's like whether that article was written or not, and whether it says all men or not, because if there are enough experiences for every woman where they have been taken advantage of in some way by a man, then it doesn't matter whether that article was written or not. It is our experience.
I think to make a movie like that in that sense and then put that in there, just like...
Put it in the...
Yeah, the message for the movie. I just don't know if that was...
But what in there? What message?
That men are predators. Like an article saying that and attaching it to the movie and trying to make that... Like you said, okay, why do you have to say it then? Because all women already know that. But if that makes sense, If all women already know that, then why does the Woman magazine have to write that on the movie?
You're getting caught up in the idea of like all anything. That's not like the important part. I think that what you're expressing is a thing that comes up a lot, talking about like men and women, and a lot of these sorts of things. Not all men, is a phrase that comes up, and not all men initially was a response when women on social media would talk about things that men would do. And then not all men became its own hashtag and sort of like catchphrase for those same women now mocking the men for having to saying that, because it ends up being a sort of defensive.
Well, I guess
thing,
I was
right?
Well, have you heard the continuation of that? It's not all men,
right,
but always a man.
See, but also
and
too,
yes,
like, I don't know.
all women.
I feel like,
yeah,
I was going to say, but the reason why I say not all whatever is because that's the way I was taught, especially watching social clips or whatever. It's like, when you hear like men saying like, oh man, like, women are all this or whatever. It's like, well, not all women. It's like, well, yeah, that's right. Not all women. So it's like, but why can't it go the other way around then, I guess?
But that's how people talk. Two podcasts ago, you were talking about how casting operates for your experience.
Yeah, from my experience.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's
my
like, if I'm casting person, not all casting directors.
That's why I like to talk from experience more than just opinions. And that's where I think generals.
That, for women to say this is our collective experience and like, it's enough of a pattern to where people are realizing, keep in mind, like a lot of these things, I think for every woman, there's a point at which there's a light bulb that goes off and makes you realize this isn't just you who's experiencing these things, and sometimes it's at a young age, right? Sometimes it's older, but there's a moment for women where you realize like this is just like there was a moment for you when you realized as a Korean American man that there are certain things that you're experiencing that wasn't just you, it was also to other Asian Americans, Korean Americans, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's not so much, I think that it feels like it's being directed to men. It
really
is
does.
In a way. However, it's speaking about the larger problem of like, how does this tie into toxic masculinity? How does this tie into patriarchy? And that's why, maybe we should have a better way of discussing these things. However, it doesn't take away from the truth of what women's lived experiences are when from a, very young age, we're being, hypersexualized, harassed, catcalled, attacked, assaulted.
So I'm going to ask you, Kimmy, then how, like, obviously it sounds like you've overcome a lot of that. So obviously you're dating Nick, so you don't think he's a predator. But like, here's the thing though, when I hear that, it's like, it's almost like if you're newly dating, it makes it even harder for a guy who's not a predator because every girl's going to think they're predators. So it's like, why have that?
I'll tell you that
sense.
You have that opinion before you even start dating because you experience it before you even reach a dating age.
Yeah.
So that will go to my standpoint of like, so a lot of people, especially girls, tell me, well, get out of your mind that Asian girls or white people don't find Asian guys as attractive because that's what's going to hurt you. So get that out of your mind. But it's experience. I've had that many times where Asian girls will say, you're not that attracted, or I'm not attracted to Asian guys. So why should I go around saying, well, all girls think Asian guys aren't that attractive?
You wouldn't say that because that's
a collective experience that I've had from Asian guys too.
Yeah, but wait a second. You know that's not true, though.
No, it can be.
No, it's literally not true. Like, there are Asian women who are with Asian guys. There are Asian women who are with white guys.
Right, but there's also men who also aren't predators too, though, or predatory or have done something.
Sure, but
how that differs is that do you feel any kind of violation other than hurt feelings?
I feel racism, yes. Discrimination, yes.
But we're talking about violence, assault.
Of course, but I'm just saying, I'm making an example of like, how come that is not, like, why can somebody tell me that? Like, well, get that out of your head. Not everybody thinks that way. But then it's like, why is it so healthy to go in to women say men are predatorial and go in there from a first standpoint?
So
is what I'm saying.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because this is,
by the way, I get the feeling all of this is going to get cut. So.
No. I think this is a very healthy conversation.
This is his own kind of hot take, but it's a little bit more complex and nuanced, but it's very much along these lines. Like, when we read or hear about men acting in like what we might call like evil, like violent ways.
Right.
One of the questions that I've asked myself, and when I hear and read like terrible things that happen, can I relate to that violent man, that rapist, that whatever? Do I see any of that within me? Or do I see that as like completely not me, 100.000%? And this is it's a hot take because I've never heard anyone talk about this personally. Okay. I can only speak to my own experience. But as I've tried to be really introspective and look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, do I think I will be violent in that way? I do not think I will. Do I see in myself the potential to, in whatever unforeseen circumstance,
or if you were raised a different way or something,
or whatever, like, in other words, do I see the raw materials for that kind of violent individuals within me? Like, do you see that in you? Like, do you see yourself as someone who is capable of like violence?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're Korean, so we have Korean rage. So that's
I think that's you're making light of it, and that's cool. Like, but
no, I was going to also tell you too. As actors, we're taught we have the capability for anything.
Yeah,
men, women, rage, violence, anything. We have the capability for it. So it's just that we're humanized to not tap into it. So that's how you relate to a character, right?
Sure.
So yes, I mean, that in general, I think anybody, if they're really honest with themselves, can do any of that. Like abuse of power of any sort. We have that capability.
As much as it's disturbing to think about, I'm comfortable sitting in that uncomfortable space.
Let's wrap it up and let's transition to things that are not also associated with masculinity, but the positives. And, what we kind of want to talk about, like, what were those for both of you as you were growing up and even today? Like, what are some examples that you, like, whether it's a character from a book, film, TV, that you really kind of gravitate towards and admire?
Yeah.
Because we want to kind of then segue to, like, what are some of the positive examples that you've seen throughout your lifetime?
Right. Because also, too, you were sharing, Kimmy, earlier, there's like fiction also increases empathy, you were saying, right? And
there was a study done that reading fiction for boys helps to develop their empathy.
Well, I hope fiction also includes comic books and choose your own adventures, because
sure,
that's like what I read growing up.
I read a lot of choose your own adventure too.
Yeah. Did you read comic books though?
Not that much.
Manga? Nothing?
A little bit, not that much.
Oh, you missed out, man. I think comic books had so much more meaning back then they do now, obviously. Because I would say I learned a lot of fictional characters and empathy or justice, especially through comic books and the heroes. So X-Men are obviously the ultimate example of it, right? I mean, I even see correlations now. Like they had seasons of comic books where the mutants were being attacked because of a deadly technovirus. People thought they were carrying it, but they found out it was airborne.
A lot of like discrimination stories.
Yeah, very like that, similar like COVID-19 and everything, you know, like being different and being special and people fearing you for that. And it's like, it gave me so much more comfort and like wanting a sense of justice for people like that were harmed that way.
Yeah.
That's where I got a lot of my empathy from.
Yeah.
Was there any that like, I want to dial it in and say a particular character?
So unfortunately, some of my characters were the most violent though. Like Wolverine, I guess Gambit too, but he would probably be considered a predator these days. You know?
Really?
He was a womanizer. You know, like always pursuing Rogue, even though she can zap his powers, forcing a kiss on her, like all that kind of stuff. I'm sure like people angle it that way, but like I learned like, yeah, that's.
But what did you like about them?
What I liked about Gambit was that he was so opposite of me. Like he was charming. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid to pursue women. And it was totally opposite of me. I didn't have any of that courage. So
This is as a kid.
This is as a kid. Wolverine, what I loved about him was just...
Wolverine was just a badass.
Yeah, but I also felt how angry he was. I was totally angry at one point. Like I never shared this publicly, but there's a point that I was so angry at being Asian that I didn't believe in God anymore. Because I'm like, why would God make this? You know, why would he make me this atrocity that people don't look at or think kindly of me or up, you know? Like,
I'm so sorry that
for a while.
That's, you know, stuff you had to go through. It's hard.
It was a way to relate though, too, in this certain way. And it really helped me get through it. A lot of times seeing superheroes get through it.
Were you feeling angry and then you're waiting for the claws to come out of your fist? Oh my God,
you have no idea. I used to look at the sun a lot when I was a kid thinking I would absorb Superman's powers.
Oh, man.
And I still have like those sunspots, like where it's like...
You damaged your vision?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So doctors are always like, what are these spots? I was like, I used to look at the sun a lot when I was a kid. I never became Superman.
Wow.
Yeah, and I really believed that when I turned 13, the claws would come out, or I'd have some superpowers and speed and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked you never had any of that.
I read of comic books a little bit. As a kid, I watched a lot of TV, like, you know, Saturday morning cartoons, Transformers, G.I. Joe, stuff like that.
So Optimus Prime, did you see good in him, or?
I mean, I guess so. I don't really, it's funny to think about the idea of like, where do you see like role models and things like that? You know, you know what used to go to a lot, especially like when I started doing Korean dad content, and people would ask me like, what dads, you know, are your sort of role model dads? And one of the ones that would come up was Papa Smurf.
Whoa.
Specifically. And the thing about Papa Smurf that I really loved was Papa Smurf was like the patriarch of all the Smurfs.
Yeah.
And was wiser and older. But also it's like when, what's his name, Gargamel or whatever came to terrorize them, he was running around trying to save his ass like just like everyone else was. You know, there was a certain kind of like, there's something real about that. You know, that ultimately, even though he was the oldest one, he's still just a Smurf, you know, and I liked that element of him. Whereas I felt like so often, you know, father characters in, you know, especially in media that's oriented towards kids, there was something that was unrealistic or sort of superhuman about the dad. Or very shallow and kind of like just like a veneer, just like a facade about the dad. There was like lacked a certain kind of depth. And just seeing Papa Smurf trying to like run away and just as scared as everyone else, but also being like, here, come this way, but still like just as scared. Like that's something that was always kind of stuck with me. It's kind of funny to talk about.
So I would say that my dad too shows a lot of empathy. Like he's probably the most empathetic in my immediate family, at least. And I've read fiction novels after fiction novels growing. I remember like he would always read Tom Clancy. That was his thing. But like you said, he likes being inside the heads of people. And today he probably, I think, he is still a great role model to me.
Your dad?
Well, yeah, but I didn't realize it until later in life. And the only reason why I didn't realize it is because, race was such a big thing growing up. And that's definitely one thing he could never really help out with, if that makes sense.
Right.
No matter how empathetic he could be. So I always thought to myself, I didn't really have any great role models. Actually, my dad's actually a really good one.
Yeah.
He read a lot of fiction novels, obviously. But I think growing up now, I still have a little bit of a hard time finding Asian role models, I think there's some great voices out there, but I still like I said, I go back to my dad and comic books now at this point, and like my dad's not Asian.
I talk about heroes in my life. I don't know if I've had anyone who I would consider a role model.
Oh, so who's a hero besides Papa Smurf?
I don't know if Papa Smurf's a hero per se. If I had to list my heroes, like Mr. Rogers is a hero, like Fred Rogers. I'm older, almost 10 years older than you, right? People, when you think of Mr. Rogers, like what are the sort of attributes that come to mind?
Friendly, like justly even, little creepy sometimes, because he's so nice.
So that's so good that you said that, because like I was the right age or wrong age, depending on how you want to put it. Mr. Rogers, when I was a kid, no one liked Mr. Rogers as a kid, like in my sort of age group. Mr. Rogers was for babies. Okay,
right.
Kind of like how like at some point, I don't know what it is for you. Maybe there's something you can relate to, like when you're like second, third, fourth grade, a thing that you hated because it was for babies. Like for some people, it was Barney.
Right.
Or like Caillou, or there are certain things that are like, if they're for the kids if you're in like second or third grade, there are things that are for kindergartners. There's like this visceral, like you hate it as a kid.
Yeah.
Is there a thing that was like that for you?
Yeah. Well, definitely it was, I think for me, eventually it was like Starbright or something, or Treasure Trolls, stuff like that.
Yeah. So for my age group, that was Mr. Rogers.
Wow.
Everyone hated Mr. Rogers because Mr. Rogers was like for little kids and he wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers testified in front of Congress to outlaw toys that were like military, like army and guns and stuff. Okay. Like when you're in third and fourth grade, you're like, that guy sucks. Right. But as I grew older, I came to really appreciate like he had his core values. Nothing else mattered for him but safety and well-being for children.
Love that.
Didn't care about the business thing, didn't care about the military-industrial complex, didn't like all these other factors.
Right.
He was like, all I care about is, the safety and well-being for kids. Like that's the thing that matters. And for that matter, like the kid and all of us, like all adults as well. I have other heroes, like people, I always talk about a couple like youth pastors that I had. They were really, they really taught me how to think, how to question, things like that. But yeah, like role model, like my dad is not a role model for me. No, not even a little bit. Like, I think that there's things that I do that I get from him,
right?
And it's not like I don't have a bad relationship with my father. I just don't relate to him. I think that's part of the problem. And, this topic we wanted to talk about is like reading fiction and having characters that you can relate to. There was fantasy books that I read as a kid, like Dungeons and Dragons books. There was a series called Dragonlance that was like I think it was the first sort of novelization of like the Dungeons and Dragons world, from the 80s when I was like in like mid-late elementary school that I read. And I know there was a character there, I think his name was like Raistlin or something. He was like a wizard, I always like sort of related to the wizard characters. Like Doctor Strange I related to. Harry Potter is obviously like much after my time. a little bit like Encyclopedia Brown.
What is it about the wizards you probably...
I think that there was like it was because I felt physically like weak, but they were also physically weak, but strong in a whole different way.
Right.
I think that meant a lot for me as a young person.
They didn't use their physical strength.
Because they didn't have it to use.
Right.
Like, it didn't work that way. You know, the Dungeons and Dragons sort of world and that kind of mentality of like those kind of role-playing games and even like computer and video games later, there's a certain way that things are fair.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not tall, then you're strong. Or if you're not smart, then you're fast.
Right.
Like kind of thing, right? It's like the video game gives you 100 points to attribute to the different qualities of the basketball player, and then you can build your player. They can't all add up to any more than 100. That's how it stays fair. You know, that's a bit of a fantasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was the world back then. For me, was like feeling like I couldn't measure up physically. You know, and this obviously relates a lot when you're a boy turning into a man.
Yeah.
Like your physicality is something that you reckon with in one form or another. You know, you had your way that you dealt with it, obviously. My sort of like, you know, I feel pretty fit now. I'm, you know, generally speaking, but this was like a lifelong journey. You know, I as a kid, I was very weak, not really good at any sport.
You know what story as a kid really inspired me to work out? It's called Willie the Wimp.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a childhood story of just a wimp doing...
Was it a book?
It was a book. It was like only like 12 pages.
Uh-huh.
You know, getting beat up by gangsters, and like all of a sudden he just starts lifting, doing sit-ups. He's this big buff monkey.
Swole.
Yeah, and then gets Minnie at the end, you know? And I was like, oh, wow, that could be me.
Gets who?
I think her name was Minnie. That was the girl ape that was in trouble. And yeah,
I missed the part where they're apes.
I'm telling you, it was very inspiring as a kid.
Yeah. How old were you? Do you
I
remember?
must have been like 8, 7 even. You know, and
you were like, that's going to be me?
Yeah, it's going to be me, you know?
A lot of your stories seem to be focused around, like, when you were a young person.
Yeah.
Seem to be focused on, when I get older, I'm going to get the girls.
I guess that is my life story. That seems to be my mission, and I definitely see myself more as a relationship person. And I know you might find that hard to believe.
I don't find any of it hard to believe.
Well, I was just...
So like monogamous.
Yeah, for sure. It all started when I was just a kid. Like exactly that. Like I always wanted to find the love of my life, especially early on in age. I think where it got disillusioned and shattered was actually college. So I was saving my virginity for the right person. And so I was 21 and...
Wait, before that, when you would say saving, was it...
I would still go on dates.
I mean, was it a situation, not to get sort of like down and dirty, but like, was it a situation where there would be, you know, the term we used to use back in the days, like heavy petting, where it's like you're making out and kind of like feeling around, and then you're like, no, I'm not going to go there as a young person?
I didn't even really have that.
Okay,
it was just like making out, heavy making out.
Okay.
Up until I was 21. There was nothing else. So
people talk about first base, second base, third base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so it would be like, I would probably got on third base with the girl, but they never got on third base with me, if that makes sense. So
just a lot of batting practice. Never playing defense.
But it was like, to me back then, sex was very sacred to me for the one person, because I realized I was like,
what comic book taught you that?
None, actually. No, this is my logic, which I don't actually know where I got this from. Maybe it's from Disney movies or something, but it was like, literally you have one virginity. You might as well give it to someone that you think you're going to have a long-term relationship, or the one or something.
You didn't learn this from somewhere?
No, I mean, I went to Catholic school, but I mean, I wasn't believing that. Maybe it was looking at my parents, because like, I think I had an idea like, oh, my parents, I thought they were the first ones for each other because they got married at 18. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe that, and their healthy marriage and everything. So I role modeled that a little bit. They didn't
get divorced till later.
Till way later, yeah. After I lost my virginity, but
and then after that, he was like free for all.
Well, this is what sucked. So, 21, college, I thought I found a girl. And I told her about that. I was like, hey, I'm a virgin and wanted to save it for the right person. Well, she came in drunk one night into my apartment and forced herself on me. And
I'm sorry.
I thought it was as a guy, I'm like kind of like just frozen.
Yeah.
And she took my virginity. And it was
after you told her this.
After I told her this.
That's a certain kind of predatory.
She continued to ignore my calls and text messages. We were neighbors, so I banged on her door, asked her, like, roommates, where is she? Like, she's been ignoring me. Like, what's going on?
Like right after this.
Right after this. The next door neighbor saw me as a threat. They're like, we're going to call the cops unless you stop. So obviously I stopped. I was shattered after this. I didn't talk to her till after I graduated from college, but that moment actually turned me into more of the playboy then. Afterwards, because it just totally it scarred me so hard that nobody will ever understand, except maybe other women who were forced sex on as well. But like, it happens to men too.
Yeah,
and it happened to me, and it made me so resentful. It made me resentful towards women. I distrusted them. I thought I was doing something sacred for myself and a woman, and I thought it was all a lie then. I was like, this thing that women say is trash. That's not what they want. Because if it was, this wouldn't have happened to me. And so I definitely went on a rampage for a while. Just be very responsible with sex and women in general. And I found out before I graduated from college, because I bumped into her roommate, and she told me she just wanted your virginity. And to hear that, it hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I have a very complicated relationship with that, because I know that's me. That's who I really am, because that's what I wanted. And it was taken away from me. And I went the opposite for a little bit. But yeah, I found my way back. I think that a lot of it, like alcohol, and that's why I went to AA and got better and stuff, because I was like, I don't want to feel that way anymore. But yeah.
First of all, I'm so sorry that happened. It's a terrible experience. Part of your charm, and especially as I've gotten to know you, as Kimmy and I have been getting to know you, there is a certain kind of like happy-go-lucky kind of, very positive, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and to imagine like college-age Kevin 10 times more so, sort of even brighter-eyed and even bushier tail, and then having a certain, maybe call it naivete, or call it a certain type of fantasy or a certain type of dream, like I can relate. There's a certain kind of romantic idea of yourself and the kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
And then to sort of have it be taken like a trophy. I mean, in so many ways, it is so much like the thing that you hear like women go through, being made to feel like some kind of accessory, some kind of object, some kind of
conquest,
yeah. Kind of thing.
Well, I appreciate you, being so open and honest and sharing this. It's not something that's easy to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's. I probably have a lot of baggage with the word predator and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Just because I'm like, fuck, man. I'm just like. Anyway, it's not an excuse for anything. I do understand it goes the other way more than anything.
Yeah.
But it makes sense now. I can only speak for myself, but it makes sense now why that word lands, for you in that way, because of this particular, experience for you.
Yeah. Totally.
It's weird, like, too, like you forget about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like when things are triggering, like, I don't know why, if that makes sense. I mean, you think you do, but it's actually, I was like, fuck no, I had that happen in my life.
How old were you exactly?
It's 21.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why we talk about like an impressionable young person.
Right.
Is that at a certain age, your brain is absorbing things a little bit more. In other words, like, whereas if you experience things today, it doesn't like live as deep in your sort of brain file cabinet.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a young person, like it's big and it takes up a lot of space in there.
Right, because you also don't have much to compare to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like your first experiences of everything, and if that's what's forming how you perceive a lot of things.
Yeah, it took a lot of healing.
Yeah.
A lot of healing. Well, it took a lot of drinking, a lot of healing, a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
and coming back to it. But it's like, look, I think it all happens for a reason in the sense of like, obviously I hate that it happened, but to me, it makes me value a relationship more, especially when it's honest and everything in the beginning. I'm also a little bit always on guard, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I had really good role models, though, for marriage, too. I think my parents were very good role models for marriage.
Yeah.
They really were.
Despite their divorce.
Despite their divorce, successful 30 plus years, like they raised 2 kids, and.
Yeah, but anything like day to day that you observed that you're like.
Yeah, they kissed each other every single day in front of us, even.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Good night. And even though me and my brother would be like, oh, ew, like they would still do it because it was like, they weren't making out putting their tongues in front of us. Like it was just literally just like a kiss goodbye,
Yeah.
But it showed like affection. And I think that's probably why like physical affection might be important for me too. Because they showed physical affection. And you didn't have that with your talk to me about your dad a little bit. Was he just not, was he absent or was he just?
I don't really relate to my parents or like, especially my dad, and they don't really relate to me. And I think that there came an age, I think it was my early 30s. Or maybe like late 20s, early 30s, when I just realized like that's just how it's going to be. And whether it's okay or not, like I think before that, I was really focused on like, this is not okay. And there came a point at which I was like, maybe it's not about whether it's okay or not. Like maybe I don't get to, that doesn't really matter. It just is what it is, And so I think that like, my parents are both still around. I think that there's part of me that, we talked about pre-grieving a few episodes ago. I think there's part of me that is like trying to decide how I'm going to feel when one or both of them dies. Not regarding like missing them or anything, but like regarding like that gap.
Yeah.
That idea that like they never really understood me. I don't feel like they ever really valued the things about me that I feel like are valuable. I feel like I have learned so much from them. Yeah, my dad is a certain kind of sweet guy, but also like a certain type of like very limited in his understanding about a lot of things, especially like when it comes to relationships and not like just romantic relationships, just like relational things.
Well, where did you learn it then? Because you're so opposite of what it sounds like.
This is something that really drew Kimmy and me together when we were first getting to know each other, was that there's 2 kinds of people. One of the ways, obviously, to divide people up is that there are the kind of people who look at the way that they grew up and they're like, I turned out okay, so I'm going to sort of follow that roadmap. One of the things that Kimmy and I have in common is that we didn't like how we grew up. And a lot of our childhood into adolescence, young adulthood was spent imagining like what things could be like, and how things could be.
Yeah.
And using sort of our brain power to kind of do the math and kind of assemble like what that design looks like. And then in our adulthood, then using that map that we sort of drew almost from scratch, but also like informed by books we've read and characters and things like that. You try to build your own map.
Yeah.
So then, when we first got together, it's like as we got to know each other more and more, realized like we grew up very different, but the thing that we had in common was that like we kind of like, the image of sort of emotionally holding up those maps. Here's my map. What does yours look like? And realizing like there's things that these have in common.
Yeah.
Different background, but in the same sort of way, like the map like leads to the same place.
It's beautiful.
I
love that.
It's cute and sweet. It's also like this process hasn't been all. Kimmy loves the phrase "ponies and rainbows." It hasn't all been easy either.
Yeah.
Like in many ways, there's been a lot of unlearning and relearning certain things. For instance, like when we first got together, I realized that my understanding of what it meant to be honest in a relationship was very limited. Because through my prior partners, I had internalized this message that they don't want to know the truth.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
It's not convenient to them. It's not pleasant for them. They don't, and in many instances, they straight up said, like, I don't want to know.
Let's give some clarity. It's more so like, if there are challenges, don't tell me about it. Just fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of men can
100%.
relate to.
I get that.
I know that you can.
Yeah.
Through the stories that you've shared.
Yeah.
This idea of like, I don't care if we can't afford this house. I'm going to be emotionally, verbally abusive to you if I don't get this thing I want.
Right.
And then when we get it, like I almost went to jail because I had tax problems, like that all kind of stemmed from this, decision that I made, this bad decision that I made, like to try to make somebody happy that was never going to be happy. But, realizing that through that, there was this sort of lack of a real partnership of real, like, we're in this together. It was more like, you need to give me the things that I want, that I think I deserve in my relationship. And so, yeah, like when Kimmy and I got together, I realized like, oh, like in so many ways, this is the relationship that I've always been looking for. And I'd forgotten. Talking about this actually makes me realize a work of fiction that actually meant a lot to me.
What is this?
So, do you know the Gift of the Magi story?
No.
So,
Is
there's
this
a writer.
A book or is this?
It's a short story. O. Henry.
Okay.
Gift of the Magi. The short version of the story. There's like a poor man and a poor woman, and they love each other so much. And his prized possession was that he had this pocket watch. And her prized possession was she had this amazing hair, and that they agreed like to get together for Christmas. And when they met to exchange gifts, they realized that he sold his watch to get like a comb for her hair, and she cut off her hair to get a chain for his watch.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I get like emotional thinking about it because I was a kid.
Right.
And I remember reading that and thinking like, simple, like that's it. It makes total sense. It's like, reading 1 + 1 = 2, like it was very simple math. And that through like, 30 years of relationships, realizing that I'd kind of given up on that so much that I'd completely forgot, and then yeah, that Kimmy and I got together, and as time progressed, realizing like it just struck me one day. You remember when I brought it up? Like I'm like, oh my God, like I had this story that was like my dream.
Yeah.
And that I'd kind of buried and forgotten about it because I'd sort of decided that it was unrealistic. And then to all of a sudden realize like I'm in that dream now. This is actually like I get to have that story finally, Like, how can I not feel emotional about it, right? Like, this is decades of relationships. This is my childhood self. I was like in 4th grade when I read that story. Like, I very much remember, my mom gave me that book. I think it was for Christmas. And she was like, if there's one story you have to read in here, it's this Gift of the Magi
She
story.
told you that?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so...
Wow, I've never heard that story either.
I basically, that's the whole plot.
Yeah.
What you do in a relationship is you find a relationship where you give your whole self, everything that you have is on the table, and then you find someone who is just as giving. But instead, what you find is when someone's really good at giving, very often you attract people who are really good at taking and don't know the exchange part.
Yeah.
And, I would never want to demonize those people. Like they just didn't grow up that way, like knowing how to do that, or they never learned, or they just didn't understand, how these things go or can be. But that's was the thing that I was always searching for, is that kind of partnership. And yeah.
I love that story, Nick.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to carry that with me as well. Like, fuck Princess Bride and Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I was familiar with the story when he had brought it up. So
I mean,
for
I
us,
love
it was like something that we connected on because that's the way that we see relationships and
Yeah.
had imagined, the future of our, relationships.
He gave the watch for a comb.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she cut off her hair and sold it.
Love it.
Yeah.
They live happily ever after, right?
No, that's the end of the story.
That's not the end of it?
Yeah, they don't,
that's
they don't go further.
It's a short story.
Yeah.
But like, in a way, I think what you're left with is like, they were so poor. Like, again, they were so poor. That's all they had.
Yeah.
But when they, this sort of exchange or lack thereof, attempted exchange happens, I think that the feeling is like they didn't have anything and they have everything.
Yeah.
Well, some people would have like a different, like, oh no, like these gifts are worth nothing now. But in actuality, they got a bigger gift than whatever was given to them by the other person.
Well, but the gift is not even
the material
that
thing.
Act.
Yeah.
It's just what it symbolizes.
Well, what they were willing to give up too, right?
Yeah. In the story, like their most prized possessions, like everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
I love that.
This one was a unexpected.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love it though. This is good.
Yeah.
I feel healed.
Yeah.
Well, healed more.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Nick.
Definitely cry more after I became a dad. I find myself like tearing up more. Yeah.
Because now your kids should hopefully role model you a little bit. Like, hopefully they don't have that where they're saying, I don't have anybody to role model.
Yeah. I think that I can confidently say that my daughters see me as a role model in a lot of ways. Yeah, but you'd have to ask them.
We'll ask them next time. Wow. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.
And listening in.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, we both shared a lot today. Are there books or characters that are especially sort of formative for you?
Yeah.
Are there role models or heroes or heroines that you want to share about?
Yeah.
Like
or other stories.
Do you have a story about like how you became you that you don't think is like the typical or sort of normal way?
No.
That people kind of come into their own, and maybe like what are something that made you cry that you didn't think you were going to cry about today or recently? Any one of those things. We'd love to hear from you. dadanddaddy.show@gmail.com, or you can DM us at any of our socials or at Dad and Daddy Show on Instagram. But till next time.
Till next time.
Yep. For my gift, super producer Kimmy Chan, and me, I'm Nick Cho.
And I'm Kevin Kreider.
Okay. Take care of yourselves. Peace. Love you.